Chapter 225 to 226. Rei, alongside the Shadow Corps, promptly returned to the village on the other side, after they were sufficiently assured no clue of their brief visit was left behind. 3 hours later, Rei was finally notified that Ringo also returned from her own mission he assigned her in Konoha. She tiredly walked into the living room of his mansion, where he was patiently waiting for her. Seeing her haggard state, Rei stood up and hurriedly walked closer, hugging her while letting her lean on him to give her at least some relief. "I see you had fun," he quipped, making Ringo groan in irritation. As if. Sneaking into the most guarded archives of both Konoha and Root in the time span of 3 hours, right after the massacre of the Uchiha clan was discovered. Ringo huffed into his shoulder, her embrace possessively tightening. Sure, the personnel in both the Hokage Tower and the Root headquarters could be seen as almost non-existent compared to what is there normally because of the massacre. But everywhere else ninjas swarmed the village. Honestly, an hour after the discovery, every able chunin and above in the village was called to duty, and the civilians were ordered to stay inside. Getting through the village without being spotted was a veritable nightmare, and I am not even talking about the protective seals I had to get through. Ringo's shoulders sagged. Well, you are the best assassin in the world. Who else could I rely on than you to infiltrate and steal from one of the most guarded places in existence? Rei flippantly stated, caressing Ringo's back. His tone might have been joking, but both he and Ringo knew he fully meant every word. The Kage towers in their respective villages had tons of active and passive protections. Sneaking there was a clear suicide too, considering the numerous seals, both hidden and otherwise, and the fact they are in the middle of a village full of trained killers. After all, at no time and under no circumstances are there less than 5 ANBU operatives inside. Kyuubi could rampage through the village, and these 5 ANBU would still not leave the Hokage Tower. That's also not counting all the otherwise ranked ninjas normally present in the tower. Rei could really only shake his head in exasperation when he remembered the first episode of Naruto, and how easily the protagonist sneaked in and out of the Hokage Tower with the Forbidden Scroll. Really, only once somebody gets a reality check about how tightly these places are guarded can a person understand how impossible such a thing is. Either Naruto was severely underestimated by everybody, or his sight in the Hokage office was a quite common occurrence, and nobody paid it any attention. Yes, I am the best," Ringo admitted with an amused but tired eye roll. "Anyway, I did get what you wanted. The copy of the order to Itachi Uchiha to cause the Uchiha massacre is in my back pocket, while I already gave other copied paperwork to Konan," she said, only slightly widening her smile as she felt Rei's hand slip into her back pocket and brush her backside while he withdrew the paperwork. "Okay," Rei pecked Ringo's lips. "You should go and take a long nap while I and Konan sort the situation with the Uchiha clan and their welcome to our village." That actually sounds quite nice," Ringo sleepily agreed, her eyelids involuntarily closing by themselves. "I really do not envy you, though. Persuading them to move here and be loyal to our village will surely be a right pain in the arse." With one last kiss, they separated. Rei and Konan decided it would be wisest to wake only a few important hand-picked members of what remained of the Uchiha clan to negotiate terms and inform them of their situation, so they then can gradually persuade the rest. Waking up all of them at once would cause total mayhem, since there were hundreds of them, if one counted civilians. As for choosing who to awaken from the stasis for the negotiation, that didn't pose a problem thanks to the previous months of spying via Konan's Kekkei Genkai. Since Rei knew the Uchiha massacre would be happening sometime after or around Naruto's 7th birthday, he made sure that Konan set up her surveillance of the Uchiha compound at least a year prior to that. In the end, one simply didn't go and meddle in such an important historical milestone, happening in the middle of a village full of trained assassins without being sufficiently prepared and well-informed. It took some time identifying who is and who is not alive, since Itachi and Obito did manage to get to some people. But ultimately Conan was able to choose the individuals that should be most effective in persuading their clansmen. That's why on the couch in the living room of Rei's mansion now sat Rei and Conan on one side, and three unconscious people were slumped on the other. The first was an old balding man of 89 with many wrinkles, Isamu Uchiha. He was kind of an obvious choice since Conan reported he was the mildest of the Uchiha elders. The guy was one of the very few people alive who were old enough to remember things like Uchiha Madara, Hashirama Senju, the creation of Konoha, all three ninja wars, and so on and on. Rei would like to believe with that age came wisdom, since the guy was the only one from the Uchiha Elder Council who opposed the plans for rebellion. Well, he was the only elder left alive too, thanks to that. Then again, the man managed to garner quite a lot of respect from his clansmen during his long life, and having him persuade the remaining ninja population of his clan would go a long way to seamlessly integrating the Uchiha clan to the village on the other side. Frankly, Rei was putting quite a lot of faith in the man cooperating for the good of his clan. After all, the Uchiha clan didn't have much of a choice anymore. The second person was Mariko Uchiha, who was a 30-something civilian. She was picked because apparently she owned a clothing business, and literally every Uchiha knew her and bought their clothes from her shop. She was well known and well regarded among both the civilian and ninja parts of the clan, which was quite rare considering how arrogant and prick-like the Uchiha clan's ninjas usually were. While Rei didn't strictly need Uchiha civilians, he couldn't just throw them away like used trash now, could he? Mariko seemed like a good choice for a representative of civilians, and Rei was sure she could persuade the civilian side, while also getting some ninjas more open to the integration. And lastly, the third person was Izumi Uchiha. Honestly, she was there simply because Rei wanted her to be present. The girl was 13 and already had Mangekyo Sharingan. It was a sad truth that could prove very beneficial in the long run, so Rei saw no reason not to use it to his benefit. Oh, she was no Itachi Uchiha, that was for sure, but she was the most valuable thing Rei collected on his little expedition to Konoha. "Okay then, let's wake them up," Conan said, and the ceiling tags that kept the three unconscious instantly detached themselves from their foreheads, causing them to stir. Isamu was up and about in a split of a second, a true testament to his instincts and a small show of a reason why exactly he managed to outlive all of his peers. Mariko was quite slow, but even she got wary and woke up fast when she found herself in an unfamiliar room. Only Izumi showed a bit more childish side when she mumbled about requesting 5 more minutes, but was promptly woken up by Isamu, who ruthlessly poked her ribs, causing her eyes to go wide as she gasped in pain and slouched forward. Rei watched in amusement the antics of his involuntary guests, his smile widening when 3 uneasy and questioning pairs of eyes finally landed on him. It was time to show them why following him was their only chance at surviving. Naturally, he just had to start cheerfully. "Hi there! Didn't expect to wake up again, did ya?" The 3 Uchihas blankly stared at Rei, confused about what was happening. Surprisingly enough, it was not the experienced Isamu nor the adult Mariko who reacted first. Hello?" Izumi half-stated, half-asked. "What is happening?" She tilted her head and curiously blinked, probably not yet remembering the previous night in her still sleep-befuddled state. "Well, as you might or might not remember, some rebellious elements yesterday decided to eliminate the Uchiha clan. I was like, hey, Rei, that would really be a shame if they all died out, wouldn't it?" "So?" I decided to save you." Rei shrugged, his slightly narrowed eyes trailing over his three guests as if he was stalking his prey. "Naturally, I do expect to be repaid." He added to make things clear. Rei watched the reactions of his involuntary guests and approvingly noted that Izumi, despite being only 13, managed to appear outwardly calm and stay quiet despite the raging inferno of emotions Rei could see in her black eyes. The second he reminded them of what transpired the night prior, Izumi's eyes slightly widened as the memories of her previous night sprang to the forefront of her mind. From there, it was a cocktail of shock, anger, sadness, grief and confusion, mixing visibly for anyone who would bother to look. Yet, it was so very obvious the girl had ninja training as her expression was blank, and her body, while still giving some tells, at least didn't telegraph it to the whole room. The most visibly distressed of the three was the civilian, Mariko, who looked sickly pale as she realized how close to death she came yesterday. She was fidgeting and looking around in panic, her brain trying to comprehend what will happen to her now and what to do. And as expected, the eldest from the group, Isamu, looked almost anciently calm, his emotions perfectly veiled by both ages of experience and his training. If one looked deeper, though, it was obvious the man felt sad about what happened to his clan. "So Itachi really betrayed us?" Isamu asked in a resigned tone of a man who already knew the answer, causing the two women to snap their eyes towards him, demanding answers. "What do you mean? Itachi? That sweet, quiet kid who was kind to everyone?" Mariko questioned with a shocked gasp, while Izumi only hung her head low. Rei, however, could clearly see her clenched and shaking fists on her knees in barely restrained anger and anguish. To Mariko's question, Isamu only sadly shook his head, showing he himself didn't want to believe that Itachi would be capable of such a decision as slaughtering his own family. And yet, it happened. Izumi took a deep breath and slowly raised her head towards Rei as she quietly asked, "My grandmother, may I bury her corpse?" Rei smiled at her determined look and nodded. "Of course," he said, and saw Izumi instantly relax in relief and her guard slightly lowered in a show that Rei was slowly gaining her trust. It was almost cute how easy it was to garner some goodwill. Really, what use would he have for the body of an aged civilian? He resisted the urge to shake his head in amusement. That said, he wouldn't go telling them his Shadow Corps harvested the Sharingan from the corpses of the ninjas who wanted to rebel or were far too arrogant for their own good and therefore forsaken by Rei. These corpses his ninjas didn't bother collecting when they were retreating from Konoha, so unless someone broke the secrecy seal on his Shadow Corps, Tsunade will have a neat supply of Sharingan eyes for a study with nobody from the Uchiha clan the wiser. Not like they could complain, since the results will be used to improve the bloodline of the loyal Uchihas anyway. Rei was quite content watching the reactions of his three guests. If he took lead in the discussion from the start, he wouldn't be able to assess them as thoroughly as he did now, which led him to some interesting discoveries, especially when Isamu's reactions were concerned. "You suspected Itachi?" Rei asked Isamu, his eyes glinting at that bit of information. "Does that mean everybody in the Elder Council suspected Itachi of being a spy? Better yet, does that mean Fugaku suspected Itachi?" His amusement was only increasing as he imagined how Fugaku must have felt when, after he sent his son to be an ANBU for Konoha in order to better the Uchiha clan, he found out the said son actually did his job and was an ANBU for Konoha and not for the clan. Isamu gave a tired half-smile that looked quite pitiful on the ancient man. "Let me first introduce myself. I am Isamu Uchiha, as you probably know since I was picked to talk with you." He lightly bowed his head, showing his age was not as restricting as his wrinkles would signify. May I inquire, what exactly do you expect from our clan now that you have us in your grasp? The second Isamu voiced that question, both Izumi and Mariko stiffened, only now understanding what Rei meant when announced he saved them. Only now they at least partially realized the implications of what happened yesterday and what it meant they woke up opposite to Rei. They were not here to discuss the weather and have fun. Only now did the severity of their situation really enter their mind, with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Rei was happy hearing Isamu's question. Honestly, if the old man actually let himself be led astray by useless chatter and ignored the important bits, Rei would be disappointed. After all, the man was chosen because of his lifelong care for his clan. I want to integrate your clan into my village, Rei started, raising his hand to forestall any arguing from Izumi and Mariko, who were already opening their mouths. You should understand that your clan has no home in Konoha anymore. Any Uchiha who would show up in the world will most likely be pronounced as a rogue ninja and hunted with extreme prejudice by Konoha. For Konoha, your clan is extinct with only Itachi and Sasuke Uchiha remaining. It would be awfully suspicious if more Uchiha clansmen started popping up all over the elemental nations now, wouldn't it? Rei grinned at the disgruntled look of Isamu. The old man clearly knew what it all meant and what was not explicitly told. He knew what was in the shadows, not clearly seen. Mariko and Izumi, though, had no idea, and as such, Rei had to elaborate. The people who orchestrated the Uchiha massacre can't let the Uchiha clan live. Even if you manage to return to Konoha and reinstate your clan, in due time, another attempt at wiping you out would be performed. Just think. What would it mean if it came out that Konoha tried to wipe out one of their founding clans? That it was not just an act of one maniac, but of Konoha higher-ups? What would it signify for the other clans in the village? Rei shook his head. No, the Uchiha clan had to be silently buried if Konoha was to prosper. Otherwise, it would eventually lead to a civil war that would destroy Konoha. Clans would not be able to trust the Hokage if the information that he condoned a massacre spread. To give things more into the perspective here, Rei put a paper on the table between him and his three guests. Taking and reading it, Isamu's eyes widened and his jaw slightly dropped in astonishment while his body shook in disbelief. There. It was the order for Itachi Uchiha to kill his clan, signed by Danzo Shimura and Hiruzen Sarutobi alongside his two advisors. If Isamu had any complaint against the integration, it was a long-forgotten history now. He understood his clan has no other choice in the current situation. Rei could basically throw them out, and they would be systematically hunted by Konoha, other villages that would want to breed them or get their hands on Sharingan, rogue ninjas for monetary reasons. And, well, they were quite screwed, and the man in front of Isamu seemed like their best and only bet. Isamu sighed and handed the document to Izumi and Mariko. Hiruzen's signature is forged. He doesn't have such exaggerated strokes while signing things. That doesn't matter, though. He sighed again, this time more tiredly. Yes, Lord Rei, I think our situation and your proposition are quite clear. On behalf of the Uchiha clan, I accept and vow to help integrate my clan with your village, he stated, getting a goggle-eyed stare from Mariko and Izumi, to which Isamu just bitterly smiled. He was a part of the Elder Council. It was simply too easy to deduce why he was the only elder present for an important negotiation such as this, or why the clan head was not present. The fate of his clan was now on his shoulders, and he would be damned to doom it. Good. Rei nodded in satisfaction before a Cheshire grin spread through his lips. Now, I would like to hear the bit about Itachi and your suspicions. I want to hear about the supposed rebellion from your point of view. I want to know what the Uchihas were thinking, doing something as stupid as planning a rebellion against Konoha. Rei's eyes sparkled in anticipation. Well, do tell.